Welcome to the DPS Endless Wave Proving Grounds Guide. This is part 3 of a 4-part series. I like this strategy much better. What I did here was put Stormer Fire on the Amber Weaver, Stormer Fire on the Mogu, then I would chase down the monkey and DPS him. What's really nice about this is that by the time that the monkey goes down, which is about right here, almost all 3 NPCs are done. So now you're at 35 seconds and you just have these 2 Slayers left. So I put Stormer Fire on one of those and then DPS. The Banshee would come up, shift to that. You might want to put Stormer Fire on the Slayer when you move to the Banshee. That might be a refinement. But after that character goes down, you still have a good amount of time to finish off the final Slayer. I like this much, much better. This is Wave 10. Wave 10 is all about executing your rotation and properly utilizing your cooldowns. I start this event with getting one of the Berserker debuffs that are on the ground. That gives me 30 seconds. Around 45 seconds I'll be using the White Tiger ability, and then at 30 seconds again I will be using the Berserker debuff that's on the ground. So basically using all the cooldowns, especially during the 20-second phase. That's when the other cooldowns, such as Tiger Eye Brew and the trinkets, come into play. In the last 20 seconds, the shield comes down, and you want to use all your cooldowns that are remaining. You'll notice that I had a big crit on the Rising Sun Kick right at the 20-second mark. The Rising Sun Kick has an 8-second cooldown, so it's crucial to get both of those kicks in the 20-second final phase. This section is on cooldown usage and suggests a strategy on how to approach using your cooldowns. This is a spreadsheet of the cooldowns that I used in this Proving Grounds challenge. I'm not suggesting that you necessarily do a schedule of all the cooldowns you plan to use, but this schedule does illustrate how the cooldowns were used and does provide a way to strategize when to use what cooldown on what wave. At the top of the schedule is the number of waves, and each wave has a difficulty ranking. That's the columns going across the top. On the cooldowns are listed along the side on the left side. There's a lot of cooldowns that are available. I've got 2 trinkets, the White Tiger, the Berserking buffs. They spawn on the ground in the event in waves 4 and wave 6. Adding the G91 Land Shark, that's something that you can buy in the auction house. That gives you an extra cooldown. It's an AoE cooldown. I use that on wave 3 in the bunnies. The Chai Brew, make sure that I use that in building up charges of Tiger Eye Brew in anticipation of waves 5 and 10 on the 20-second burst phase. And then Touch of Death. That's a special ability for low health targets. I use that on the Banshees in waves 4 and waves 8. When you put together a schedule like this, it helps you plan out where you can use your cooldowns and how to maximize cooldowns. For example, the White Tiger, obviously on wave 10, that's your most difficult burst event. I use the White Tiger there 45 seconds. Well, if I use the White Tiger at 45 seconds, and if I wait for 3 minutes, then I have in wave 3 an opportunity to use the White Tiger on the bunnies. If I was to use the White Tiger on waves 5 and wave 10, that would pretty much just give me a usage of 2 actions on the White Tiger instead of 3 in the event. If you're having trouble with a particular wave and need some help and all the other things you've been working on in terms of kill order, positioning, and execution, if all that doesn't seem to work, then you can go to the schedule and start moving around cooldowns, and you can borrow cooldowns from certain waves that you don't have trouble with and start using those cooldowns on the wave that you do have trouble with. Just a quick comment on the use of the Chai Brew. The Chai Brew is a talent and has 2 charges, And basically you want to be using it as often as possible during the challenge to keep the number of Tiger Eye Brew charges generating. But it does have 2 charges, and you're going to use both charges on the small shaw and the big shaw. And what I'm doing is I'm using wave 1 and wave 6 as a period of time where I don't use the Chai Brew, so I can build up 2 charges, so that way I have the 2 charges available for waves 5 and 10. But basically every wave, every 45 seconds, I'm going to be using the Chai Brew to develop a charge. In regards to the Berserking buff, I typically plan to use both charges of the Berserking buff in wave 10, the first one at the 60-second mark and the second at the 30-second mark. I have gotten through these wave 10s with only 1 Berserking buff spawn. So if you're having trouble with any waves from 4 to 9, you might consider using one of the Berserking buffs then and try to make do with wave 10 and only using 1 Berserking buff towards the end of the wave. This guide is broken into 4 parts. Part 4 is a complete 30 wave attempt at the Proving Grounds, which shows the last 10 waves. Keep in mind that the way Proving Grounds is designed is that you have to complete 30 waves to get the title, but there are only 10 unique waves. After you complete the first 10 waves, the content of the waves repeat. So wave 1 is exactly like wave 11, and so on. What does happen, however, is that in each successive wave, the health of the adds increases by 1%. For example, wave 11 is going to be 10% harder than wave 1. In actual play, the increase in difficulty sounds worse than what it really is like when you're actually playing. At the bottom of the Part 4 video, there are 3 information windows. The first window describes the strategy for that wave. The middle window shows the approximate starting position, and the window on the right shows the cooldowns that are used in the wave. The video also includes an ongoing narrative. Each wave in Proving Grounds is exactly 1 minute long, regardless of when you finish the wave. After the end of the 10th wave, there will be a 15-second rest period. The rest period is a good time to renew food buffs if you are running out of time on them. There are 2 ways to using Part 4. The first is just to watch it and get an idea of what I did to get through 30 waves. The second way to use the video is to put the video on a second monitor if you have one. Run the video while you're playing WoW, with the video running about 10 seconds ahead of your actual gameplay. That way you can glance at the video while playing to get an idea of what is coming up on the next wave and how to approach it. In the video, I replaced the actual wave 29 with a wave 9 video that has a better strategy for that particular wave. This section is on gearing. In Proving Grounds, all your gear pieces are scaled down to level 463. The first question you may ask is, do I need a separate gear set? There are a couple things to consider in regards to the gear set. First is you'll be able to use specific weapons and trinkets for this challenge that are not available from the most recent content. Secondly, you can fine-tune the gear set with reforging and gems that does not disturb your normal raid gear set. I suggest the following guidelines on gearing. 1. Seek out gear that has gem slots. Gems do not scale down like the gear pieces do. 2. If you have a choice on gear, use pieces that have the preferred stats. 3. You cannot benefit from legendary item procs on the cloak or benefit from the legendary metagem. Even though you do not have legendary abilities on the cloak, it does have a gem slot that would be usable. In my situation, I found that a non-legendary cloak worked better for me than the legendary cloak. You can put a usable gem slot in your weapons using the Eye of the Black Prince and a Throne of Thunder weapon. This is a good reason to dual wield. You can select use trinkets that give you the ability to do more burst. In my build, I used the Flashing Steel Talisman, which is a drop from the last boss in Scarlet Monastery. The other trinket I used was the Wound Ripper Medallion, which you can buy for Justice points from the Dominance Offensive Quartermaster. In terms of stats, I did not do anything special for Proving Grounds. I used what is typically suggested for current raid content. This section is on talents and glyphs. In terms of talents, there are 3 talents that I really think are worthy of talking about. The first one is on movement. I chose the celerity talent, and the reason for that is if you compare the distance between the adds and you look at the distance that you roll, that's about the same. So I could pretty much get anywhere I need to go with 1 or 2 rolls, and so that works pretty well. So with this particular talent, I get an additional roll and my cooldown is shorter, so it really makes it easy to maneuver around the proving grounds. I'd like to talk about the tier 3 talents. Let's start off with power strikes. I don't have much experience with power strikes. From what I've gathered from reading what other people say about it, it's not very popular. If you look at the other 2 talents, Ascension and Chai Brew, I have gotten to wave 30 on using both those talents. And my experience is that when using Ascension, the easy waves are easier and the harder waves are harder compared to using Chai Brew. And when you look at the mechanics of the Ascension, where it gives you a constant improved output, whereas Chai Brew is designed to be more on use bursty, then that makes sense. I think that the Chai Brew talent makes Proving Grounds a little bit easier than the Ascension talent. The final talent worth mentioning is the tier 6 talents. The Rushing Jade Wind certainly is nice on the Vermin and the AoE events in the Proving Grounds, but it doesn't come near to doing the kind of damage needed for the burst events like the White Tiger does. So I think we're pretty much stuck with using the White Tiger. In terms of glyphs, the glyph of spinning crane kick is really crucial on getting down the Vermin and the AoE wave. The Touch of Death glyph is really important on being able to get those banshees down quickly, so I would take that. In terms of minor glyphs, I think a must-have is the glyph of Blackout Kick. Now what that glyph does is it removes the facing requirements for the Blackout Kick in exchange for having less healing ability. Since you're not taking any damage in Proving Grounds, I think that's really a good one to have. The UI setup I use is pretty straightforward. I use Tell Me When to set up cooldowns for the trinkets, the White Tiger, Tiger Eye Brew. I use Bartender 4 and set up a bar to hold my Chai Brew icon so I can monitor that. For buffs, I use an agility flask and the best agility food I could get. The Proving Grounds was meant to be a challenge. As of September 2014, according to World of Warcraft's, 1% of the level 90 characters had completed the Wave 30 Endless Wave achievement. Completing the achievement takes time and patience is required. It takes time to learn each of the 10 waves. It was meant to be hard. One tool for getting through the Proving Grounds is a video screen capture program such as DxTory or Fraps. The ability to replay your attempts can identify areas of improvement that are easily missed in actual gameplay. If you start getting frustrated or having trouble with a particular wave, ask yourself the following questions. Am I starting in the right spot on each wave? Do I have the right kill order? Do I use the right cooldowns at the right time? Can I change the kill order? Do I need to move cooldowns around? Did I get hit by Banana Storm? Did I get hit by Amber Globules? Am I moving too much? Can I improve my gear set? Keep in mind that the Proving Grounds is a finely tuned event. Completing a wave with less than a couple of seconds on the clock can be common. You may encounter a wave attempt where you did everything right, but because you had a bad streak of luck on the crit attacks, you didn't make it. That is where persistence comes into play. There was a study done at Princeton that demonstrated that electronic random number generators can be influenced in a faint but consistent manner by the power of thought. So, if all else fails, think good thoughts. That's it for the guide. The very best of luck to you in your Proving Grounds challenge.